Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping into a really interesting space, a world where sound isn't just something you hear, it's something you actually feel. It's a space designed for processing some pretty big emotions: grief, loss, memory, especially thinking about our planet.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at this project, Glacialis, Memory Beneath the Ice,
Yeah.
a sonic ritual for climate grief and ancestral remembrance. It's by TATANKA.
Right.
And it's this immersive audio project. It brings together Arctic ambient sounds, shoegaze elements, binaural frequencies. It sounds complex, maybe,
A little bit, yeah.
but the result is something, well, really unique.
And our goal today really is to unpack how Glacialis is trying to be more than just, an album you put on.
Right.
It's set up as a meditative thing, a sonic ritual, they call it, meant to bring up memory, grief, stillness.
Yeah, the idea is shifting listening from passive to active, real reflection.
That's the key, isn't it? Transforming grief, making it an active process, not just a wait.
Exactly. And they're using sound as a kind of, well, a therapeutic architecture.
Yeah.
That's the insight, really. Every frequency, every tempo choice, it's all designed very deliberately.
Like a guided meditation, but deeper.
Yeah, much more immersive. So we'll dig into three main things. First, this idea of climate grief and ancestral memory.
Okay.
Second, the use of healing frequencies and how they affect brain states. And finally, the really experimental stuff, this super slow tempo and the whole production design. It's a journey, kind of, where sound is both a lament and a guide.
That phrase, climate grief and ancestral memory, that immediately caught my attention. How does this project even begin to suggest that something like ice can hold memory?
Well, it starts with a pretty radical idea that the ice isn't just, frozen water.
Right.
It's a living witness,
Yeah.
a huge silent archive of history, of memory. The album suggests that under the melting glaciers, there's the memory of millennia,
Wow.
ancestors, spirits, a lost ecological balance.
Yeah.
It's a very spiritual way almost of looking at the planet's past.
So how do you translate that huge, almost abstract idea into sound? What does that sound like?
That's where the vocals come in. They call it the voice of remembrance.
Okay.
It features these minimalist female vocals, very restrained, meditative, sometimes just whispered. The idea is that this voice channels what the ice remembers. So it's inviting you to grieve, yes, for the environmental damage, but also for the quiet erasure of cultures, of past times. It's subtle, but really powerful.
Whispered, chant-like, fragmented. That sounds incredibly delicate. Is there a risk that gets missed? Or does it demand a specific kind of listening?
Oh, it absolutely demands a different kind of attention. It's designed that way. And connected to that are the symbolic soundscapes. Those field recordings, the subpolar winds, they aren't just background texture. They're called symbolic portals into forgotten environments.
So they have a role.
They act like characters, really, telling stories of decline. And that vast Arctic silence you feel in the music, it's not just about being remote. It's a metaphor for the emotional emptiness left by climate devastation.
I see.
The whole project actively refuses to sensationalize, which is quite a statement in itself.
This is.
It aims to create a sacred space for reflection. It encourages engaging with climate grief as an ancestral dialogue, with like some traditional Inuit spiritual practices.
Okay, so we've got this concept, ice, as a living archive of grief, of memory. But how does that artistic idea actually connect with us physically, emotionally, beyond metaphor? That's where the sound science comes in.
Exactly. This is where we get into the healing frequencies and deep brain states.
Right.
So the album weaves in this invisible but present 1.5 hertz delta binaural beat.
Okay, maybe break that down a bit. Binaural beats.
Sure. So the way it works is you hear two slightly different frequencies, one in each ear. Let's say 100 hertz in the left, 1.5 hertz in the right. Your brain perceives a third frequency, the difference between them. In this case, 1.5 hertz.
Ah, okay. Your brain creates it.
Exactly. And this subtle internal beat encourages your brainwaves to sync up with it. So that 1.5 hertz delta beat is gently nudging your brain into those slow delta wave states.
Which are associated with.
Deep medication, subconscious processing, even things like cellular regeneration. It's designed to be felt more than heard, making you more emotionally receptive. It's pretty precise neuropsychology applied to music.
So it's literally trying to tune your brain. And then there's another layer, the 396 hertz solfeggio drone.
Yes, that's an ancient tone. Historically, it's linked with releasing fear, guilt, trauma.
Interesting.
So in the context of climate grief, maybe intergenerational trauma too, it's positioned as a tool of liberation.
Liberation. How so?
It suggests it's not just about feeling the grief, but about actively releasing it, finding a way through it. And the key thing is how precisely these frequencies are used. They're not just background noise. They call it the emotional architecture of the album.
Right, intentional.
Yeah, it's this really interesting bridge between, ancient traditions and modern science, between trauma and healing.
A tool of liberation. That's quite a powerful frame. Which kind of leads us to how all these elements, the emotion, the frequencies actually feel in the listening experience, especially with that tempo.
Ah, yes.
I mean, what really struck me was the tempo choice, 38 beats per minute. That's incredibly slow, almost static. Why go so slow?
It is audacious, isn't it? And totally deliberate. The idea is that this glacial pace mirrors the movement of ice itself, slow, inevitable, transformative.
Okay.
At that speed, every note, every sound just stretches out. It creates this emotional dimension, inviting you to relinquish urgency.
Relinquish urgency.
Yeah, and just dwell in that liminal space between sound and silence.
That's the beautiful phrase. What does that space feel like, the space between the sounds?
Well, imagine being in a huge, quiet landscape.
Yeah.
The sounds are so drawn out, so deliberate, that the silence between them feels just as important as the notes. It's like a forced pause, a space for your mind to not rush ahead. It encourages you to linger, reflect, let emotions come up without feeling pushed. It's really not music to be consumed, but inhabited.
That 38 BPM, it feels almost like a rebellion against our constant rush culture.
It really does.
It forces you to just be still.
Absolutely. It's like untraining yourself. We're so used to music propelling us forward.
Yeah.
And Glacialis just says, nope, stop, be here now.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, for sure, but rewarding if you let yourself sink into it.
So how do they build that sense of environment you can inhabit? What are the production techniques?
They lean heavily on shoegaze techniques.
Okay, for those maybe less familiar with shoegaze.
Think guitars, but not sounding like typical guitars. They're drenched in effects, massive reverb, long delays. The sound washes over you, becomes this shimmering, sometimes blurry wall of sound.
Okay.
That infinite sustain and those blooming reverb tails they talk about. It makes notes hang in the air seemingly forever. It creates this vast, immersive sonic space. Almost disorienting sometimes.
Like being inside a glacier, maybe?
Kind of, yeah. Every production choice is meant to mirror natural forces, so the production itself becomes a form of environmental storytelling through sound.
Before we get to 𝗑𝗕ᗓ𝗓's story, which sounds incredibly moving, I want to ask about the audio aspect. AI in music can be controversial.
You can, yeah.
What makes TATANKA's approach here different or intentional, as they put it?
That's a really important point. Audio is their own term, their specific method for weaving AI into the creative process.
Right, their own methodology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It emphasizes that it's their way of using it, always guided by human artistic intent. It's not about letting an AI just generate music wholesale.
So how are they using it?
More like using tools like ChatGPT to maybe refine lyrical themes based on the core concepts. Or using something like Meta.ai to explore specific sound textures they're looking for.
Like an assistant, then?
A very sophisticated assistant, yeah.
Yeah.
It helps shape and sculpt the human vision. The text serves the deeper purpose, the emotion, the spirituality. And their choice to use Audacity on Ubuntu, that open source ethic, it really underscores the point. AI can support spiritual and ecological art, not replace it.
Okay, that makes sense. And to really grasp the human side of this intentional approach, we need to talk about 𝗑𝗕ᗓ.
Yes. Her story is... well, it's where you really see sound become ceremony healing through resonance.
Tell us about her.
𝗬𝗓𝗓 is a trans-Zulu Swahili woman, an asylum seeker. Her voice is described as being like ancient clay.
Wow.
Carrying all this memory, grief, survival. She travels to Nunavut. Initially, her main desire is just to forget her past.
But she encounters TATANKA's Orchestra Americana, which isn't just a band, right?
No, it's described more like a global heartbeat, matriarchal ancestral experiment, and they were actively looking for memory holders like 𝗑𝗓𝗓.
And her experience in the studio sounds incredible.
It really does. Picture this. She's speaking into a microphone wrapped in seal fur. The studio is warmed by geothermal energy, and facilitating the session is Araya, a deaf Blackfeet sound engineer.
That's amazing.
And as those shoegaze sounds, the binaural beats, that 396 hertz drone wash over her, she starts humming, weeping, sharing her stories. And that culminates in the track, The Ice Has My Name.
Just incredibly powerful, creating that safe space through sound.
Exactly. And her journey didn't end there. She stayed, kept working, scored a piece about polar bears, layered Swahili poetry over Inuit throat singing. She even collaborated with other marginalized women on a track called Song for the Ones Beneath.
So what's the main takeaway from her story in the context of this project?
I think it's this vital idea. Healing doesn't always come through visibility. It sometimes comes through resonance.
Resonance, not visibility.
Yeah. The album didn't go viral. It went vital. People described it as memory made audible, a climate requiem in feminine form.
Yeah.
And for 𝗑ᗕᗕ𝗓, the ultimate experience was feeling the ice softly, almost shyly, sing her name back to her.
Wow. That sense of recognition of being heard by the environment itself.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it just perfectly illustrates TATANKA's wider mission, doesn't it? Empowering displaced communities, underrepresented voices, those carrying grief.
Providing this platform where, as they say, ancient voices meet future tools.
Yeah, and the unheard become harmonics. It's a really compelling vision for what art can do.
So wrapping this up, what does Glacialis offer us, the listener?
Well, fundamentally, it's more than just music. It functions as this immersive ritual. It uniquely combines technology, these ancient frequencies, and really deep artistic intention, all focused on addressing climate grief and bringing ancestral remembrance into the present.
It really is music that asks for your presence. It invites you to engage with loss deeply, but also maybe find paths towards healing or remembrance within that soundscape. It asks you to lean in.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe it leaves us with a question to ponder. In this time of huge environmental and cultural change, what memories are we being called to hold on to? Not just for ourselves, but maybe for the ice itself. And for future generations, who will be listening for what the earth sings back.